Minister, a while ago I asked you about a very radical NGO meeting in Cork City Hall funded by your department, which featured very disparaging accusations that the Gardaí are racist and that all white Irish people are privileged and more, and you condemned those comments at the time when I asked you about it. So now that you know your department is funding organisations which promote very radical and offensive ideas, which you yourself condemn, will you be cutting funding to such groups or doing anything about it practically under your department's new budget for the coming year?
There are various different funding streams that provide support to organisations, victims of crime being probably the main one. My views are still very much the same as last year. Any organisation that in itself projects or engages in that type of behaviour is not an organisation that I want to see have funding. However, we need to make sure that in either reducing or taking funding away from an organisation, that we understand what has happened indeed, if an individual has made a comment, whether the organisation is making those comments. So again, I think it depends on the individual situation, but you know, any of the organisations that receive funding through my department have to go through a rigorous process, the same as any other. And if there is any type of behaviour like the such that you've mentioned, obviously that has to be taken into consideration when funding is granted.
So would that be part of the renewed funding process if organisations, you know, not individualising it to any particular group, but if these NGOs that are currently receiving funding from your department apply this year, will your department take proactive steps to look into that sort of rhetoric, for example, and will that factor into the decision of whether or not they receive funding or the same amount of funding?
If there is an organisation that my department is funding that is engaged in racist behaviour or any other type of behaviour like that, absolutely that would be taken into consideration if any funding is being provided. Absolutely.